Why, hello there, Knife Stare here, bringing you a knife review. I do hope you're having a good day today, and what we're looking at today is this very interesting custom knife. It is an Emmanuel Brun, I hope I said that right, out of South Africa. Maker's mark right there. And this is the Kroko, I want to call it. It's a very, very interesting little knife that has a very simple yet striking aesthetic, in my opinion. Crazy action. Honestly, like, I'll talk about it, but this action is just nuts. Nutty. Let's get the blade wiped off a little bit real fast, and then take our time going into specs. Take our time, not go fast. It's faster. 3 1/4 inch blade, 7 1/2 overall, which should make that 4 1/4 inch. Pretty decent ratios there. As I said, it's not a particularly large knife, but it doesn't feel quite as small as the Conspirator. So I'm going to call this a medium-sized knife, despite it being not the Conspirator, the Elementum. Despite it being relatively close to the Elementum, it definitely feels in hand like a slightly larger knife. I'm going to call it medium, but you might call it small. Thickness, compared to the Conspirator, is actually thicker. This is a thick boy. Quite a thick boy, in fact. It is contoured. These are wood scales. Ironwood, I think. I got this a while ago. I can't recollect. I don't even remember what the blade steel was on the thing. In fact, I'm not even 100% sure I ever knew. I got it off of Arizona Customs. I'm the second owner here, but this thing is in perfect condition, so who cares? Okay. Thickness of the handle scales, and this is going to be surprising. 587 thousandths, yes. Almost 600 thousandths, 0.6 of an inch. It's quite thick, but I feel that actually helps it in the hand. It really kind of works. Another thing that's absurdly thick is this blade stock. 152 thousandths. Honestly, I thought it was going to be thicker. I'll be completely honest with you. I mean, look at that sucker. It's thicker than the liners. It really gives you the illusion that this is ridiculously thick. It's quite thick. However, it is got a surprisingly... it's got a not super obvious or deep... Come on. But it is hollow ground. Behind the edge is about 13 to 14 thousandths. So despite that thick blade not having a super tall grind, and yeah, it gets thicker up the blade reasonably quickly. But honestly, it's still quite usable, and as you can see, it's almost mirrored on the bevel. The flats are satin, but the bevel has got a satin with a bit of a mirror on it. You can kind of almost see me, which you're not going to, because I don't want you to. Where was I finishing the specs? Of course, you have approximately, effectively 2 AA batteries of grip length, despite the small size. I can more than get my hand on this thing perfectly fine, and perfectly happily. Weight, 0 out, please, thank you. 3.4 ounces. So close to an ounce an inch. But you've got, if I remember correctly, these are titanium liners, full titanium liners. Yeah, there's full titanium liners, full titanium clip. There's no real milling on the inside. They could have probably gotten it down a little bit, but it is a custom, so weight perfect, ratios is not exactly what's normally going for here. Doesn't bother me one bit, really. Oh, and hardware. hardware. Where is that? There it is. I think this is T8. Is that T8? Yes, T8. And T9 body screws, or at least screws on the scales. I would be darn surprised if they weren't T6s under there. South Africans and the French particularly love their T6s. But also, in my experience, they do a decent enough job with them that I'm not too upset about it. They might be T8s, but probably T6s under there. I'm not taking this apart. I've got it set perfectly, and I don't remember. So, too bad. It's not really important. This is a custom. Who cares? Alright, moving on from that, and now into the main actual blade, or knife itself. We're done with specs, basically. You have what is clearly a slightly modified sheep's foot blade with a very dramatic edge there. Almost straight, but a little bit of belly. Good at tips access, very, very robust, due to this robust blade stock. For actuation methods, you have a fuller that is very rounded and bowled out, but actually still works. Like, the detent on this thing is not super strong. So even this rounded, softened stuff works. It also has a front flipper with great wire jimping. Though it doesn't go around, it works. It works great. It works fantastically, in fact. Your stop pin is behind the edge, but it is all the way back at where the blade is. Here, I can show you. Where basically the blade reaches its thickest point. Back at right at the beginning of the full thickness of the tang. So I'm not actually going to call that a problem, because I would be cutting in a oil, which, yes, the plunge grind does, in fact, just about hit the edge. But again, custom, I'm going to give it some grace there, and I can definitely cut in a oil if and when I need it. Haven't needed it. Haven't carried this thing a ton. It's definitely more of a, I don't know, it gives a kind of a gentlemanly vibe to me, with the wood and just the smaller size. So I don't carry it a ton, but I have carried it a couple times. The bearings is, as you can see, it's honestly one of the craziest knives I've ever felt. It doesn't feel like anything's there. It doesn't feel like it's running on anything. It just feels like it's got a bar that is just freely swooping down on. There is no tightness, nothing. This is just full-on guillotine. However, and this is what's really interesting about this, the way he did the, as you can see, there's your lock bar. The way he had it interact with both the underside of the tang is quite interesting. Hopefully I can show this to you. Basically, you disengage it, and it moves a little bit. But as you can see, it's not up on the blade yet. It's not until there that it's up on the blade. However, that the detent ball is up on the blade. However, due to the angles and the way everything meets up, you can see the detent ball right there. As it continues to go forward, the detent ball actually pops back out off of the face of the blade when it gets to about 50%. So this holds it right there. You disengage, you're on the face of the blade, off of it again, and you're back. And it's just the detent ball that's holding it. So just the slightest, lightest pop, and the detent ball is back on the face of the blade, and it drops like there's nothing there. So it's quite interesting. It's detent ball on, detent ball back off, and holds it in between these positions right about here, and you can just do the slightest light tap to get it to drop the rest of the way. It's almost like a protection kind of thing because of how much of a guillotine this thing is. It's really kind of interesting playing around with the exact placement and way it interacts with the shape and function of the tang, being just barely touching until you get to there, and then it's boom, on, and drop. It's a nice little feature, kind of. I just like it. It's just like, woo, pop. It's satisfying for some reason. And it's a nice touch. It is a liner lock, obviously. You can see the liners here. And though there is no milled out access to the lock bar, and yeah, you do have to come from a sort of a diagonal, both of these are chamfered out and actually provide, probably due to this thickness of the blade, a surprisingly good access point to the liners for disengagement of the lock. So yeah, no problem there. I already mentioned the stop pin. The entire handle is super neutral, super ergonomic. It is super comfortable. It's just, yes, this works. No matter what you're doing with it, it works. Even though this clip looks like it could be a problem because it's, you know, it's on such a thin knife, and it's not. You feel the tip of the clip a little bit, but it's so well done that it works. Maybe, no, even gripped up like this, like when I first grip it, if you grip it at the wrong angle, maybe, but if you really put it in for a push grip, it sockets right where it needs to, in my hand at least. And the contoured scales are lightly shadow boxed by the liners, which is a nice little just attractive touch, I think. It's got a full wood backspacer, which is kind of nice. I already mentioned no milling, and the clip is secured from the inside by what looks to be T6s. So that makes me think, yeah, it's T6s in here. It is titanium. It's a little tight, but there is decent flex, and it has good retention. There's no real... Like, it sits just above the scale, which you actually see often on... Like, it's touching, but just... No, it's not actually touching right now. It's so close that technically it taps, but it's so close that and so minor that it doesn't actually tap in any meaningful way. Let's see. Yeah, that's me. Maybe at the tip. Occasionally, for some reason. But you'll see that with customs, sometimes they don't have, their clips don't touch, which is interesting. It works just fine. Continuous rise, broad head. Yeah, it's got points, but they're well rounded down. Reasonably deep carry. Sort of more than mid. Good lockup. Centered. Oh, there is a tiny bit of play in this thing. Let's see what we can do. I know I've had it gotten rid of it. And the play is gone. And the action is no different. And I believe we're still centered here. So, yeah. This is a really fun, simple knife that is just interesting. It caught my attention, and yeah, it's a custom. It wasn't super cheap. It was like $1,200 or something like that, or $1,000 or something like that. So it's definitely not for everyone, but it is a really good design. It's really simple, and it's done quite well. And is that centered? Yeah, it looks it. Maybe it's a hair off. No, I think that's just the grind at the tip. Yeah. I'm a stickler for centric. As you can see, this is just an interesting piece, in my opinion. Or as you can hear as I'm talking about it. I'm saying it's interesting. Yeah, I like this. It's a fun one. It was a different kind of thing. It was a spur of the moment kind of thing. I saw it and I'm like, you know what? That's kind of doing it for me. So the Kroko, I think? Yeah, by Emmanuel Brun. Hopefully, again, pronouncing that correctly. South African makers are always doing interesting stuff. And this one has number 23 scribed in there. It's the only internal scribe, so I don't know if this is number 23 that was made or what, but either way. It's a fun little knife that I honestly think this design could translate to a lot of potential. Like, there could be a premium production version of this, there could be a budget version of this, considering just how straightforward it all is. But if you do it right, it could be really, really good. And, yeah, that's the knife. So I'm going to end things here. Thank you for watching. Consider liking and subscribing, commenting, sharing, etc., etc. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.